Man Visible and Invisible by C.W. Leadbeater. Chapter 21. The Causal Body of the Adept. Probably, to those who cannot yet see any of the higher bodies of man, the illustrations given in this book will be to some extent suggestive and even illuminative, and it is in the hope that they may be so that it has been published. Yet those who can see, while recognizing the full, painstaking care and skill of the artist, will also agree that even the lowest of these superphysical planes can never be adequately portrayed on paper or canvas. If this be true, as assuredly it is, how much more hopelessly impossible must it be to try to represent the adept, the man who has attained the goal of humanity, who has become something more than a man. In his case, the size of the causal body has enormously increased and shines with sunlight splendor far beyond the imagination in its glorious loveliness. Of the beauty of form and color, here no words can speak, for mortal language has no terms in which those radiant spheres can be described. Such a vehicle would be a separate study in itself, but one quite beyond the powers of any but those who are already far on the path. This at least may be seen, that such a body is not only much larger than that of the ordinary man, but also it has colors differently arranged. These no longer move in whirling clouds, but are arranged in great concentric shells, yet permeated everywhere by radiations of living light, always pouring forth from him as a center. The order of the colors differs according to the type to which the adept belongs, so that there are several well-marked varieties amid their glory. Strangely enough, considering the recondite character of the subject, a perfectly accurate tradition of this fact has been preserved in many of the roughly drawn pictures of the Lord Buddha, which one sees upon the temple of the walls in Ceylon. The great teacher is usually represented surrounded by an aura, and the strange thing is that, though the coloring and the general arrangement of those surroundings would be grotesquely inaccurate and even impossible if intended for that of an ordinary man, or even for that of an ordinary adept, if one may without irreverence use such an expression, yet it is a rough and material representation of the actual higher vehicle of the adept, of that particular type to which the Great One belongs. It is noteworthy also that the lines of the health aura are drawn in some of these primitive pictures. If it is impossible to attempt to illustrate the causal body of the master, it may yet be worthwhile to give some idea of the relative size and appearance of that of one of his more advanced students, one who has attained the fourth stage of the path, which in Oriental books is called that of the Arhat, A-R-H-A-T, in brackets, see Invisible Helpers, page 172. Such an endeavor has been made in plate 26, but an effort of the imagination even greater than usual is necessary to complete the picture, by reason of the fact that the colors of this causal body have two characteristics which are irreconcilable here on a physical plane. They are distinctly more delicate and ethereal than any that have been previously described, yet at the same time they are far fuller, more brilliant, and more luminous. Until we can paint with fire instead of mere color, we shall find ourselves always on one horn or another of the dilemma. For if we attempt to represent the depth and the richness of the color, it must look dense and solid. If we try instead to give its marvelous transparency and luminosity, then the colors must be entirely lacking in the wonderful power and brilliance which is so prominent a characteristic of the glorious reality. Since, however, an effort has been made in this case of the other causal bodies to give an idea of the transparent ovoid form, it's better in this case to try to give the depth of color, its arrangement, and its relative size. This last can be brought into proportion only by the expedient of decreasing many times the size of the physical body in our picture. For if we retain the same scale as that previously employed, the causal body of the Arhat would need to be represented as some yards in length and breadth. Consequently, we are compelled to reduce very much the drawing of the physical form in order that the causal body, when drawn in proportion to it, may come within the size of even a double plate. But even at the best, such a drawing can only be regarded as a help to stimulate us in an effort to make a mental image, an image which may perchance be less hopelessly inadequate than the physical representation. In examining this illustration, we are at once struck by the magnificent development of the highest types of intellect, love, and devotion, by the wealth of sympathy and of the highest spirituality which it displays. The outrush of the divine influence which we saw in Plate 21 is enormously intensified here, for this man has become an almost perfect channel for the life and the power of the Logos. Not only in white light does the glory radiate from him, but all the colors of the rainbow play around him in ever-changing gleams like mother of pearl, so that there is something in that radiation to strengthen the highest qualities in every person who approaches him, no matter what those qualities may be. Thus, none can come within the range of his influence without being the better for it. He shines upon all around him like the sun, for like it, he has become a manifestation of the Logos. The mind body and astral body are connected with this. The mind body and astral body connected with this have very little characteristic color of their own, but are reproductions of the causal body insofar as their lower octaves can express it. They have a lovely shimmering iridescence, a sort of opalescence, mother of pearl effect, which is far beyond either description or representation. One thing at least we may perhaps hope that our study of these inner vehicles will do for us. It may help us to understand that this higher representation of him, which is the real man, and not that aggregation of physical matter crystallized in the midst of it, to which we in our blindness attach much undue importance. The very man himself, the divine Trinity within, we may not see, but the more our sight and knowledge increase, the more nearly we approach that which veils itself in him. And if for the moment the highest vehicle of his which is perceptible to us is the causal body, then that is the nearest to a conception of the true man that our sight will at present give us. But if that same man be looked upon from the standing point of the lower mental levels, naturally only so much of him can be seen as can be expressed in that mind-body, which is the manifestation of the personality. Examining him on the astral plane, we find that an additional veil has descended, and only that lower part of him is visible, which can find expression through the vehicle of desire. Here, on the physical plane, we are still worse off, since the true man is more effectually hidden from us than ever. Perhaps the knowledge of this may lead us to form a somewhat higher opinion of our fellow man, since we realize he is always so much more than he seems to the physical eye. There is always the highest possibility in the background, and often an appeal to the better nature will arouse it from its latency and bring it down to manifestation where we can all see it. We have studied the man as he is, and it may be easier for us to pierce through the dense physical veil and image the reality which is behind. Our faith in human nature may become greater when we realize how entirely it is part of the divine nature, and so we may be able to help our fellow man the better because we grasp the certainty that he and we are one. If through us the divine light shines out more brightly, it is only in order that we may share that light with him. If we have gained a higher step upon the ladder, it is only that we may stretch out a helping hand to him. The more we understand this glorious scheme of evolution, whose progress we have been studying in its outward manifestation, the more fully shall we see the true intention of the mighty self-sacrifice of the Logos. And so beautiful is this, so perfect beyond all thought of ours, that to see it once is to be devoted forever to its realization. To see it is to throw oneself into it, to strive forever more to be one with it, even though in the very humblest capacity. For he who works with God is working for eternity, and not for time, and in all the eons that lie before us, his work can never fail.